Good morning, ladies at Phoenix Rising Women's Group and those who end up watching this later on YouTube and in the world, if we get to do that. This is Renee Guido and of course myself, Elysia Buss, here to give you some great information for our first Military Monday here in the group. Renee is an amazing human being who is an active duty warrant officer in Indiana who has come to share with us her amazing journey in being in the military while also finding a balance of masculine and feminine energies as she pursued different healing modalities, energy medicine, Reiki, meditation, and how to live the Zen warrior life. Thank you so much, Renee, for showing up today and being able to vulnerably step forward with your story.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here, Elysia. Thank you so much for the invite. I'm truly honored to be here and to share my story.
You're very welcome. So, Renee, where should we start? Tell us in the beginning, what was it that drew you to going into the military, and which branch, obviously, we should share with the group?
Yeah, so I'm in the Army. Like you said, I'm a warrant officer, and I actually had a college degree in accounting, and I was working at the Hard Rock Cafe in the Myrtle Beach, and my boyfriend, now my ex-husband and now ex-husband, so why don't you join the military, get your loans paid off, learn a new vocation, let's see the world. I was like, well, I really don't want to be an accountant, even though that's my degree. Yeah, okay, let's do this. And that was back in 2002. Wow, it was a while ago.
How quickly the time does fly. I think about that often myself. Like, where did the last 20 years go?
Yeah.
So you got into the military, and it was when you went into the military, was it everything that you thought it was going to be? Was it kind of like a shock? Tell us a little bit about that intro.
So my ex-husband, he used to be in the military. So he kind of prepped me for all the movement, all the drill and ceremony. He really gave me a prep so I wouldn't be shocked. But I went from like literally partying at Hard Rock Cafe to like 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning to now having my clothes given to me, my vaccines, being now in a very conformist, suck it up mentality and be like blending with everybody else and just keep driving on. And I was 25, and it was an interesting experience. I mean, I've always been a person of perseverance, but in Fort Jackson in the middle of the summer with all that humidity and mosquito bites, I guess because it was so short, I just pressed on, and I knew we had orders for Germany, and I kept just thinking about that. But yes, it was a little different for me being my age and going through this very conformist, break you down and build you up mentality.
Yeah. I mean, I know that I had thought about going into the military when I was younger, and my family was just like, no, that's a terrible idea. They're just gonna break you down. And at the time I was pretty like stubborn and arrogant in my own space and be like, nobody's gonna tell me what to do. Of course, like that's
Yeah, and my stepdad is a retired first sergeant, a senior non-commissioned officer, and he told me, you are too set in your ways to join the military. And I was like, oh, really? You don't think I can do it? Thank you for motivating me, because I'm going to prove I can do it. But thank you for that encouragement.
Do you think he like did that on purpose to try and put you in, like help you get into the military, or do you think that that's something that he actually believed?
I think it's what he actually believed. He knew I was in Myrtle Beach. I had my freedom. I could do whatever I want. And he's like, I don't know. I think you're kind of setting where you are in your life. I was like, okay.
But then you did it. You stepped forward and you like ran through it. And then did you end up going to Germany?
Yeah. So I spent 7 years in Germany, and it was an amazing journey, and just seeing the different culture and how people lived very differently. Now, it was right when the war broke out. So we had a couple deployments over there. But being able to blend in with the Germans and go to Paris, just get on the train and going, or going to Spain, and having that freedom to really be immersed in different cultures, it's an experience that I'll never forget.
Oh, that's really cool. How do you feel like people treated you back then, being in the military and being in other countries?
So when we first went to Iraq, the Germans were a little hesitant. They had their personal opinions about the soldiers back then, because that's what was going on. But other than that, I never had any problems. I mean, we met locals and we talked to them, and it was, I never had an issue.
Oh, that's really cool that you didn't have any issues.
Yeah.
It's always interesting and like curious how people receive the military in different areas of the world, and how the different countries have their military and come together right at a base.
Yeah.
and blend in. So tell us a little bit more about, like, do you find any times where you needed support as a woman in, like, especially in the earlier years, or what was that experience like?
So it's interesting because my journey in the military is a little bit different. I joined when I was 25. I had a college degree. I joined when I was married. But I was a junior ranking soldier. So, I was a specialist. I came in as an E4 because I had a college degree, and other E4s were 19, 20. And the ones that were my age bracket were more senior or they were officers. So I was not in the place of partying and getting drunk in the barracks and having that lifestyle, but I wasn't able to associate and affiliate with people that were my age bracket because of their ranks. So there was that struggle because I didn't want to go out and partying. That's why I lived in Myrtle Beach.
Like, I love that lifestyle. Like, we're done with that.
Yeah. I was married and I had a lot of alone time because I didn't have any sisters or any women to really bond with because of my rank and my age. So it was a little bit of a struggle, a little bit of journey. Yeah.
Interesting. And then was your partner with you, like, stationed?
So we both were in Germany together. My ex-husband at the time, Rich, he went to Iraq in 2003 to 2004. So our first couple of years of being together as a married couple, he went to Iraq, and then he came back, and then a year later I went to Afghanistan. And then like a year and a half after that deployment, I was part of the 15-month surge in Iraq. So there's been a couple times where we were apart, and then he came back with a lot of PTSD and a lot of pain. So we weren't even married that long. And now as a new couple dealing with the aftermath of being deployed in areas of the world where there wasn't a lot of facilities, like there wasn't no hospitals and a lot of medical support there. So he had to really suck it up, and then came back and had his own journey of healing.
Yeah. And so what prompted your journey of healing? Can you share a little bit with us about that?
Yeah. So you mean my personal journey or
your
like
personal journey? Like, yeah, like, how did that all start? And share some of the things you were struggling with and what brought you to that initial moment of support.
I think learning Reiki. While I learned Reiki and energy medicine, and I say both because they are different modalities, but I did it with the intentions of helping my ex-husband, but it propelled me on my own spiritual path because it gave me my own empowerment tools.
Yeah.
And I actually learned it before then. When I was in Afghanistan, we worked with the Korean soldiers, and they taught us Taekwondo, and they taught us some basic Hangul, and they taught us about meditating. And I remember sitting outside in Afghanistan, learning how to hold my hands like this and learning how to tap into my own energy. That's so cool. Realizing, wow, this is my energy here that I'm feeling. And I took those that meditation techniques in Afghanistan and in Iraq. I literally, when I was in Iraq, I would go work 12 hours, come home, and I would home. You want to call it a home. And I would meditate, and I would do meditation. I would do Kundalini yoga. And it's like, okay, I don't have a lot of access to a lot of stuff, but maybe if I can learn how to regulate my own energy and get rid of and let go of everything that I took throughout that day, at least I can own my own space and my own energy. And a lot of people have sleeping problems when they're in Iraq, but me, I went to bed every night because I learned how to manage my own energy. And I taught yoga and I taught meditation, and I realized people really cultivated and were attracted to that. And then when I moved back to the States, I went to Texas and San Antonio, and then I learned about Reiki and energy medicine. So it was like, it kept building up. And then I became a warrant officer. And when I went to Washington, I was in a field artillery brigade. And I've always been around the right leadership to support me. And I worked with a chaplain. We got on the schedule twice a month, and I taught yoga. I taught what I knew.
Okay, hold on a second. Just for the people that are out there that aren't familiar necessarily for these terms. So we have to tell them what a warrant officer is and what a chaplain is.
Yeah. And that, I appreciate that. So those that don't know, the warrant officer is the best rank in the Army. Just putting it.
No bias whatsoever.
No biases. So we have the NCOs and the enlisted, and they are the executors. They're responsible for all the training and all the management. They're out there getting stuff done. And then we have the lieutenants and the captains and the colonels, and they are more the managers. And then you have the warrant officers. They used to be enlisted, but then they became subject matter experts in their field. And then they help with the commanders and what's going on. So with me, I'm more on the communication side of it. So we are like the best of both worlds. We've been enlisted, so we have the respect of the enlisted soldiers. But now we cross over into this officer world, and then the lieutenants and the captains, they lean on our expertise. That's why I said it's great, because it's great. We're in the middle. And the chaplains, they are actually I don't even know what the word is. They're religious. They either Baptists or Catholics, whatever their denomination is, but now they serve in the military. They hold services, but you can also go to them for counsel without any. If that's not your religion, they can also give counsel and mentorship from a more counseling perspective. I keep saying counseling, but that's the best word. And they are embedded into the units, and they're there for the morale of the soldiers.
Interesting. And then you were able to partner with the chaplain and give yoga.
Yeah, he supported it because it was over mind, body, and spirit. And I got my boss, his buy-in on that in it. And it was really interesting because some soldiers went to it because they were told they had to do that for physical training. And I would see them come in. These are artillery guys. These guys are out there in the field, and they would come in, and their body language be like this, and you could just tell by their body language that they're there because they got told to be there.
Right.
And I would play really calming music, and I'd always had an opening meditation. It took about 20 minutes to see their body language just relax. Like, okay, we're all getting in the flow now. We're all good. And I realized afterwards, they would come up to me. Some of them would come up to me and they'd be like, Chief, I'm dealing with a lot of depression. I'm dealing with a lot of PTSD. I'm dealing with a lot of pain. And I really needed this. So thank you. So I had to stand in my truth that there's a need for it in the military to practice yoga and mindfulness meditation, and that it is okay. And I actually did it in the church on post. I was in the sanctuary area, and watching their body language change, I think was really great. And I really loved being able to witness that and seeing that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Are there many places that you know of that offer yoga in the military?
So yoga is usually offered on a lot of active duty installations, like in the gym. When I left, I actually partnered with a local yoga studio. It was in Washington State that actually created this little abbreviated version so they could learn yoga and know enough to teach it. And I got the unit to pay for it, which was really
great. So awesome.
So there was a legacy and a continuation of what I built. And I even got them to buy yoga mats, and I pitched the whole thing. Seeing what I started in my unit in Washington, I haven't seen that since, but there's always it's usually stuff on post that you can do.
Oh, that's really beautiful. Did you ever do anything with what did you call it that the Koreans taught you? The Hangul,
the learning Korean?
Yeah, Hangul. Like what exactly was that? I meant to ask because I feel like most people have heard of Taekwondo, but I've never heard of Hangul.
So Hangul is just the Korean language. They call it Hangul, just to learn how to speak basic Korean.
Oh, I see.
The meditation that they taught me, and I had to do a lot of research on it, and it's called the Psi ball. So PSI ball. And you just imagine this, the more you breathe, the more you can feel your energy. That's really cool.
That's so interesting. So I figured out how to do that when I was a kid, just on my own. And I've been teaching people that for like my whole life.
And some people just naturally.
Just really interesting. And like, I hear that with like Qigong, I think does that. They create the energy ball and use it with the movements that they do. And I love just seeing how like, the collective consciousness and, some things that we feel, because we do have that electromagnetic sphere around our body that can actually be measured by science, right? So it's not necessarily as woo-woo as people think, but how many people are like, get out of my space, right? that space that you're talking about is typically like your energy field, and you were able to learn how to tap into it and harness it and really breathe it in. It's a wonderful technique for emotional regulation, energy management.
And when you realize that you can only see like 1% of the light frequency, the light spectrum, when you can digest that and realize there's so much more out there, you can realize what you can harness and how you can regulate yourself. It's an amazing journey of tapping into that. And it sounds like you just intuitively felt into that. It's great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I've been doing energy work since I was 5 and massage.
Oh, wow.
So that was just the gift that I was given in this lifetime. And it's just a fascinating journey. And I love hearing about different people's experiences and cultures that have been spending, like hundreds of years tapping into this energy frequency and using it in their cultures. And there's just so much for us to get to learn about in the world. It never ceases to amaze me. It makes my heart full. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah, I love it. It's a journey.
Yeah, and you have the more interesting things that you have experienced in harnessing that masculine and feminine energy. So tell us a little bit more about that. Speaking of Asian cultures, not that we don't have all of it inside of us, but I feel like there's a really beautiful balance, like how there's the dragon and the phoenix representing the masculine and feminine energies in the East.
Yeah, and when I explain myself, I apologize if I'm out of order. I'm just kind of saying what comes to my mind first. But a couple
Totally fine. It's like a cup of tea between friends. That's what it's about, the flow.
I was sitting and I was talking to a therapist a couple years ago, and I explained to him, it's like my energetic body, it's like a tug of war. And I feel like I'm being tugged. I feel like the feminine energy is tugging me this way and the masculine energy is tugging me this way. And he's like, well, no wonder. You're in the military, you do Reiki, you do intuitive drawing. Well, no wonder there is. And I felt like there was just a constant tug. And I felt very drained because I spent so much time taking care of soldiers in a very multitask, prioritize, getting ready for war, getting ready for combat. And this left part of my body was just like dying. It's just like was very low. And I realized, I don't have it much more, but I've had left ankle chronic pain.
Oh, interesting.
It's okay now, but the left side of the body is your feminine side. And if you look up Louise Hay, the ankle has to do with fear of the unknown, fear of the future. So things started showing up on the left side of my body. And I just felt this constant tug of war and just always happened to be such in a masculine environment. And as I proceeded into throughout my military career, I kept saying about the Zen warrior and about the balance. I kept saying balance, but I don't think it was till my divorce, which was in December, how depleted my feminine energy was. And it took this healing process of going through this transformation to really bring in and tap into the feminine energy because it's been suppressed for so long. And we were talking earlier before we came on, a lot of my work environment, I didn't have a lot of female friends because I was the boss. I had to, I didn't have anybody I can talk to. And, and frankly, there were times I had to go in the bathroom and just cry and process my own stuff and then come back, dry my eyes up and get back and dealing with soldiers and telling them what to do. Why are you late for work? And kind of compartmentalize my emotions. Yeah. And my rank is there's more men than there are women. Yeah. And then the women that were my age, well, it was fraternization. So I had to really compartmentalize my life. And I think it got to 19 years in the military to realize how depleted my feminine energy was. So this whole healing process of divorce has all been about tapping into that feminine energy, being more fluid, being with the current, because it's really hard to go with the current when your life is dictated by the current politics and the current world affairs. How do you you could only be so flexible. So this transformation has really got me to make micro adjustments to balance out my feminine and masculine energy. So that's what I'm really about right now in my life.
Yeah. And it seems like you've been doing a great job of it. You just did an interesting photo shoot in fact, to be able to give a representation, which we have our little picture that's on our promo in regards. You want to share a little bit about like what was the impetus for that and what you're doing with them?
Yeah, so I went to New York to visit some of my friends, and my friend's like an amateur photographer. And I told her, I was like, I have this vision. I have this vision of me all dolled up, and I have a vision of me all as a soldier. And I would like you, if you can do it through your whole photography wizardry, I don't know how to do that, is to make it one whole body. So when you're looking at me, you see the dress on one side and you see the soldier, because I want to convey what I am embodying, both of them. And it's funny because when she took the pictures of me as a soldier, she started chuckling to herself. She's like, oh my God, it's like I'm taking a picture of a different person. It's the whole energy, wearing the fatigues, the hat, your hair pulled back. She's like, it's like a different person. And then the couple of days prior, wearing this very feminine dress, wearing these 3-inch red power shoes, because I really wanted to convey how I was feeling through an artistic expression, and then somehow look sexy. What is that? I mean, I've been in soldier for so long. I don't know what it is to look feminine, and really trying to So I wanted to do something artistically to really convey to people as I move into this retirement of how I was feeling of this masculine and feminine energy, to really feel that artistically. So my friend is currently working on that right now. I can't wait to see it done.
Oh, that's super cool. And I think it's a really good model for people to be able to embrace their authentic self, the full span of what that looks like, and that they don't need to stick themselves in a box, but rather just understanding that there's a time and a place for how we show up in the world, right?
Yeah.
And how we have healthy boundaries, right? How do we regulate our emotions and be able to understand that we can amp things up and drop them down at the same, like in really close proximity to one another, and still be our authentic selves in those moments.
Yeah, and I like that you brought up regulating emotions, because that was tough for me, and I had to really find out what worked for me, especially going through my divorce. And what works for me is dancing. This room that I'm in, I do my Reiki and my meditations, and I found music that was very singing to my soul, with the lyrics and the vibration and the sound and the lyrics, and really allowing that music to permeate all layers of my body like medicine. And I realized when I did that, I felt better. My mind felt clear. And it was very transformative for me. So now when I get a little bit like a little anxiety or a little agitation, I'll just go put on music and I will just dance. And it's what worked for me. I even did belly dancing, got my little scarf hanging up there. And just that's what I've done to really embrace the feminine. And really, for the first time in my life, like, I'm a woman here in this human experience. It's about time that I start embodying it and just celebrating being a woman, because I've been in this masculine space for so long, and that side of my body has been so suppressed. So now I'm celebrating it now instead of suppressing it and keeping that side silent.
Which is fantastic. And you are still active military.
Yes.
And I think that's such great role modeling to understand that for women who are in the military, to be able to take that time for yourself, to be able to embrace the feminine, and it doesn't make you like appear as weak. I think that's an important thing to be able to model.
Yeah. And the earlier people can embrace that, the better they are, because it is very taxing on the body when you're not doing that balance. And I was on a Clubhouse talk a while ago, and I was talking about my struggles. And one lady told me, Renee, why don't, when you're at work and you're in that masculine environment, see how the feminine energy shows up as a soldier.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when you're doing Reiki, how does the masculine energy show up? Because even on yin and yang, there's still a little bit on both sides. And I was like, okay, how does feminine energy show up as a soldier? Well, me getting to know my soldiers more, me really curious about their life and who they go home to and what makes them happy, having that kind of role, be really, really wanting to connect with them. And that masculine energy is as a healer, just being very strong in who I am and having that leadership role when I'm talking to people. There is balance, and I never looked at that, but there's a little bit in each one. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really fascinating. And because there are matriarch societies, right, that have strong leadership as women. And we have the old stories of the Amazonian tribes that were all women and these warrioresses, right?
Mhm.
And it's this fascinating balance because I see a lot in society as women that we have stepped into these masculine roles, right? But we're just amping up the masculine energy within us, I feel like, to stand in those roles instead of really empowering the feminine and having the feminine energy be the equal of the masculine in those roles instead of us just like really standing in our masculine to balance it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of us women that are very depleted, very, very, very depleted of their feminine energy. And it's not a matter of just being all girly. It's not that, because even men have feminine energy too. It's not,
Absolutely. In
this isn't,
all of us, the masculine and feminine.
yeah, it's being with the current, being, like you said, being your authentic self. How do you carry yourself that feels very sensual, and being okay with that language? How do you be a sensual woman and feel very vibrant? You know, that's why I wore my blue today, because it's my power color. How
Love
do we
it.
tap into the colors and the fabrics and moving through life with fluid and being with the current and the joys and the sadness and hardship? That's being feminine. And you can still be very strong at that as well.
Absolutely. Because it really does take a lot of strength to be vulnerable. It's not weakness. Ah, Letha, you should hop on with us, my friend.
Mm.
Elysia is, I'm not sure if you saw her video, but she is a naval veteran.
Oh, okay.
She was
Awesome.
she was part of the first wave of women in the Navy who were allowed on the battleships in war zones.
Wow.
For anyone who hasn't caught that interview, feel free to join us, like go back and
Yeah,
watch that
me
later.
too.
It's
Yeah.
pretty epic. But yeah, so what I'm hearing from you is that sometimes for support, it's not just about the usual support systems that you might find in the military, like the chaplains and flex, which are like the life coaches of the military, is my understanding, but also to be able to look within and explore what indicates to you. Maybe it's dancing, maybe it's sound healing, maybe it's drawing, maybe you find somebody else that's outside of that space that could help, that's a life coach to help you embody the feminine, like Kirti, another woman who we were interviewing on the show who's in California, who does emotional embodiment for women through dance. That sounds like there are just these different ways. And then and then there are other ways that potentially, and what else am I missing? We have the Reiki, different aspects of support, yoga.
Oh, yeah. The meditation, mindfulness meditation, guided imagery, essential oils. I got, fragrances. I have oils right here that I use, and they're very powerful if you use them for like meditation. But the art has been instrumental. I got some of my art right now. I'll just do a brain dump and just draw stuff, and creating a sacred space. So I think it's very important. So this room is just for my prayer and my meditation. I don't eat in here. I don't watch TV in here. I have a scarf that I put on when I go into meditation, and it doesn't have to be a room. It has to be just a sacred space, and however you deem that, whether it's religious, spirituality, whatever. I got my little Buddha out here and my crystals and all that, but just a space. So when you sit there, you can get into that zone. And it's calming. Like I feel very calm when I'm in this space. So it's very, very important, because it's a practice. And sometimes I've come home from work, got in change, and just came in here and just sat in here and kind of like got back into my own body and my own space, and kind of disconnected from everything that I picked up all day.
Yeah, no, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that oftentimes in life we've been trained, like, we need to find everything instantaneously, right? Like it needs to be solved like that. You need to be on, right? So creating that sacred space where you can just allow the layers of stress and expectations to fall away and just be, like learning how to just be and let any emotions like flow through you and out of you and let go of the energy that doesn't serve you.
Yes, and patience has been my mantra that has been screaming to me, is being patient and going with the flow. And it's what I see from people where they get stuck is when they don't allow themselves to metabolize their emotions. When they don't find a way, because if you don't find a way of metabolizing your emotions, it's going to happen. It's life. But if you don't metabolize it, it's like just food rotting away in your stomach. It's
Yeah,
undigested food. So if you need to scream, scream, punch a bag, do whatever, but there has to be some metabolic process going on with those emotions.
absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing that point, Renee. I really appreciate it. And Aletha has joined us. Aletha, do you have any questions, comments for Renee as you guys get to talk about your experiences in the military?
Hello.
Hey, how are you? Thank you for your service.
I love your name, Althea.
Alitha.
Letha. Love it.
Thank you. No, I'm gonna double, triple, and quadruple echo everything you're saying about one, trying to sit in your own power with both divine feminine and masculinity while working in the masculine world is hard. And the fact that finding that sacred space where you're safe and you can just go and just completely be in a space of peace and meditate and using aromatherapy. It's everything. All that you just said is exactly where I arrived at too late. I would say too late for me. Um, I, even though the military allow you to work out and exercise, that's not the mind, body, soul part. It's mind and body, but the soul piece is missing. And so when we allow our bodies to slow down and go into meditation and really pay attention to the body and say, I really would like to bring out my divine feminine and show you some, your own body love. That's really hard for us in the military. And so I really echo everything that you're saying. And it is so important to the body to connect all three.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I totally agree. And you can spend years suppressing it. And like you said, if I can send that message out to somebody who's in their 20s, really young, to really find their own power and
Yeah.
find out what works for them, especially that emotional body. It's the suppression. It catches up with us, and
Well, I'm
it
a big
becomes physically
example.
exhausting.
Yeah, I'm a big example of that. And so, yes, it does catch it up. If you don't move that energy out immediately, it's almost like when they were talking about the polar bear, when they caught the polar bear and just to tag it, and when it woke itself out of from the medicine, it kept on running. If we don't find ways to get rid of the stress hormones out of our muscles, that muscle, atrophy after a while. It's almost like putting cortisol shot in our bodies every day, 4 to 6 times a day. Where is it going? If it doesn't have a place to go, you're right. It's going to rot in our system, and eventually our muscles give out. And I was one of those people where my muscles, even though I was running, I wasn't connecting those three pieces: the mind, body, soul, and my body gave out on me. And if we could encourage a younger person in their 20s and 30s to really realize the importance of this, let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I too am a living example of what happens when you suppress your emotions too. Like I kept like you, Renee, I had injuries on the left side of my body repeatedly because I lived in my masculine so much, like hustling and getting things done. And then I blew up my back on the left side. And one of my friends who was a master Reiki, she said, you've been suppressing your emotions for too long and it had to come out somehow, like energetically.
Oh
And I mean, obviously there was another physical component. I was thrown from a horse, but it was already in a weakened area after repressing my emotions for so long. And it was just, yeah, so much built up. So I too echo with Renee and Elysia. And Elysia also is a dancer, and she was formerly an officer, and she studies Reiki, and she works with horses and does all sorts of cool stuff, and is currently getting her PhD. Isn't it in health and wellness and whatnot, Elysia? Am I remembering that correctly, my friend?
Thank you for boasting about me. You sound like my mom does when she talks to the nurses in her.
Well, you are kind of awesome. So, I mean, when I mean kind of, I mean like legendarily. So,
Oh, mind and body medicine. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate this. And you guys are awesome. I love everything I'm hearing. You won't see me because I am literally still laying in bed. I had a long drive up the Oregon coast yesterday with my son.
500 miles, she says.
Yeah. Well, we went 101. He's thinking about joining the Oregon Ducks. And so I made sure it was a fun trip this weekend.
Oh, that's very cool. Way to be a supportive mama. Yeah, and then Renee and Elysia, I think you both mentioned that you went through divorces while you were still in the military. Is that correct? I mean, Renee, you're still in the military, so that's obviously true. But Elysia?
Yeah, mine happened right after because we were waiting to try to make it easier on the kids. Um, but it was just as difficult. And so the thing about dual military families, sometimes it's really hard to keep, but if you really have the right mindset, it would have lasted. But my ex was a narcissist, and so I couldn't stay with him for much longer, else my body would just kept on dying. And that when you talk about the toxic, I was holding all that stuff in and still trying to be a military member and a mom, and still do all the masculine stuff because I was trying to fight all the sadness from what was going on in marriage and holding it in. But that toxicity had to go somewhere. And so for me, it felt like my bone just dried up.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Elysia, for anybody listening, do you feel like there are any particular support systems for military families that are going through situations like that?
Were you talking to me or?
Elysia, Renee. Sorry. We'll go back to you in a second, Renee.
Oh, that's when he was quiet. Of course, yes. There's so many different military one source is one of the biggest one, where if you don't know where to go for support, the military does provide support. Military one source is a civilian version that also will help find resources and help for you. So there was plenty of help, but like everyone, you have to go through it yourself.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate you sharing that, Elysia. And then Renee, with your experience.
So for me, I end up finding a therapist that actually specializes in art therapy.
Oh, cool.
TRICARE denied it, and then I did a little more harassment, and then they finally approved it. And she specialized in art therapy and somatic work. So really getting in touch with your body. Fantastic. And that really helped because your body already knows, and your body's going to physically show up and tell you what its yeses are and what its nos are. And I had to do a lot of work with that. And basic tasks were very challenging going through the divorce, where I couldn't do a basic task, like moving a pen from one side of the table to the other, because my brain was so full of what I was experiencing through this divorce. So one of the officers in my unit, was a little high ranking, and she kind of invited me to a lot of the military spouses, the spouses of the soldiers. They have their own dinners and stuff like that, and a lot of their events. And she invited me there. That way I'll be around women. And that was really helpful to have that support system, because when I went through the divorce, I didn't have anybody. I didn't know anybody here locally. I've only was in Indiana for 1 year, and I can't go and I can't cry to my soldiers. So having that was good. And then having that therapy was really good as well.
Thank you so much for vulnerably sharing, Renee. I really appreciate both you and Elysia. And another thing is that there are a lot of different equine assisted learning and equine facilitated mental health and therapeutic riding centers all around the United States and some around the world. who specifically help veterans, active duty and military members, the family members of military that are active. And for instance, like Michelle Kay at Operation Equine in Boulder, Colorado. She's a really great resource and does military competency trainings to support people in the military appropriately and helping people through all of that. So just as a side note for anybody who's interested in being supported by people in the horse world, they're out there, they're well-versed, and they're ready to support you.
Renee, may I say something for a second?
Sure.
Renee, awesome about finding and fighting and being your own advocate with TRICARE, because that it is a battle we will battle for the rest of our life, I think, because of the policies and the fact that they allowed you to do art therapy. Wow, wonderful. So with what she's saying about a horse, the VA is now allowing what they call the contemporary alternative methods to be fitted with the regular methods of therapy. So like psychotherapy plus equine assisted learning, they would put those two together. So now they're starting to look at the fact that contemporary alternative methods is important, such as meditation, such as art therapy, and so forth to our soldiers and our veterans that are out there. So wonderful to be your own advocate. And that's very important when your body and your mind feel like this therapy is not going to work for you. I need to find something that works, and that's beautiful.
Yeah, it was there's a whole story, a whole journey about my art therapy story. But it was very instrumental, because sometimes if you have to dial down a part of the brain, and I'm not all scientific, so I don't know all the scientific lingo, but when you do art therapy, there's a part of your brain that dials down, and then there's another part that dials up. And the things that come out, I mean, it's been transformative, things I didn't even know until I saw it. And then the therapist helps you, guide you. They don't tell you what it is. They don't tell you what you drew and what the meaning is. Quick example. My therapist said, I want you to draw a bird's nest. Just a bird's nest? Yeah, just see what happens and pick whatever color you want. So I picked a green color paper and I drew a bird's nest, and the bottom of the twigs were a little red and orange and yellow. And she's like, well, what do you think? What do you think about those colors? And it just clicked on. Wow, the bird's nest is my home. And the reds and the oranges mean my home is on fire. And she's like, yeah. And I noticed you don't have anybody, there's no birds in your bird's nest. I was like, oh my God, that means I'm lonely and my home's on fire. And she's like, yes. And she's like, and I noticed there's no twigs. You didn't put your bird's nest in any support. I was like, oh my God, I have no support. My home is on fire and I'm lonely. And she just pulled the thread on that. I couldn't verbalize that, but I drew it. So there's a part of my brain that knew to articulate that through colors and how I positioned the bird's nest. And that's why art therapy, I can do therapy, right? I can do art right now, but depending on the trauma and what you've gone through, a trained therapist can help pull that thread in a very safe space. So I'm a huge advocate for art.
That's beautiful. I'm sitting here trying to keep my mouth shut because that's what I do. I'm not a therapist. I'm an art coach. For me, the energy of therapy is just not for me. So I use art to help a lot of veterans with PTSD. And so you're speaking to the choir here, lady. Awesome. Beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I love it.
That's fantastic. We also have another lady in our group, Katie Ray, who does art therapy. She's a therapist, an art therapist. She's located in my area in Charlottesville, Virginia, and I just love her. And I actually, when I was going to college, because I have my master's degree in education, and I went and I got to do a course in art therapy. And so I have just the tiniest little background in what that is all about. And it really is a beautiful journey as a way to get to express yourself and dig deeper and figure out what's going on. So I'm really glad that you brought that forward as a modality to help support people in their journeys and transformation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge advocate for it.
Fantastic. Well, Renee, we're coming up on our hour. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about your personal story? Any other support that you can offer and resources to the ladies out there?
Just I'm available if anybody would like to chat about anything. I have quite a journey. I'm currently writing a book. I don't know if I can disclose that, but say that here, but I just did. I am working on a book right now. Everything on the back here is my brain dump, and it is how to metabolize trapped emotions. It talks about sensual embodiment, being your authentic self, and really learning what you want in your life and how to crave a thriving and yummy life. And what does a yummy life mean to you? So I'm working on that right now because I'm at the point where I don't want to be suppressing. I don't want to move forward and exist. I want to move forward and thrive and find out what that yummy life really means. So
that's beautiful. Are you going to be talking about living the warrior zen as well in your book?
I will be talking about the balance of the masculine and feminine, and I will talk about me being a soldier and my choice is what got me here to Indiana. It's quite an interesting story and why I stayed in Indiana. So yeah, there'll be a little bit about that part of my life as well. Yes.
That's fantastic. And as we get closer to you publishing it, we'll make sure and do a little live to support and put it out there as promotion.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. And where can people find you?
So I'm currently on Instagram, and it's Renee_carving authenticity. And that's where you can see everything I've done, from the art doodling. And I even do a little bit of quotes of my book in there as well. So you can really see the artistic side of my therapy on that page.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. And if anybody wants to connect with me for connection coaching, inspirational speaking, or to get to be interviewed on the show for Military Mondays, Wellness Wednesdays, Financial Literacy Fridays, or Sexy Saturdays, please do drop me a little bit of a note in my DMs and Facebook, or you can find me at www.globalequineaffiliates.com. So thank you so much, Renee and Elysia, for hopping on with us today and sharing some of your life experience and resources. I hugely appreciate you, and thank you both of you for your service.
Thank you both. Thank you both, ladies, and good luck, Renee, with your book.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Nice meeting you.
All right. For everybody out there, until next time, see you around. Bye.